Welcome to the Unsealed Files. Here we pull back the curtain on the hidden psychology, money secrets, and success blueprints that the world rarely talks about. If you're ready to break free from the traditional path and understand the raw truth behind wealth, you've found your source. Accessing today's deep dive, now.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a really fascinating stack of sources.
We really are.
Yeah, we've got articles, psychological profiles, and this one core text that basically suggests, well, it suggests you might currently be trapped inside the human equivalent of a pitcher plant.
Right, the pitcher plant. That's a great visual.
I mean, you know those nature documentaries, right, where the predator doesn't actually, chase the prey?
It just sits there and waits.
Exactly, it just waits. The pitcher plant looks incredibly inviting. I mean, it smells sweet, it looks safe.
Very safe.
So the bug just wanders right in, gets totally comfortable, and it doesn't realize it's trapped until the walls are just way too slippery to climb out.
Right, then it's too late.
Yeah, too late. So today's mission is unpacking an incredibly dense, provocative set of materials that argue almost everything society teaches us about work and retirement and success. It's actually a highly camouflaged trap, just like that plant.
And, the defining feature of a trap like that is how it relies entirely on the prey feeling safe.
Right.
Because if the insect felt any sense of danger, it would just fly away immediately.
Oh, for sure. It would bolt.
Exactly. So the illusion of safety is the actual mechanism of capture. And the sources we're looking at today, they define this specific human phenomenon as the middle-class trap.
The middle-class trap.
Right. But what is crucial to establish right away is that this text, it doesn't define the trap by your income bracket or, your net worth.
Their zip code.
Right, not your zip code. It explicitly defines this trap as a psychological state.
Okay, let's unpack this, because calling it the middle-class trap, I mean, it makes it sound like a purely economic problem, right?
Yeah, it really does.
But the text argues it is an internal condition where individuals prioritize what it calls perceived security over actual financial freedom.
Perceived security being the key phrase there.
Yeah, and I was trying to visualize this perceived security while reading the material.
What did you come up with?
Well, it feels like a steady paycheck is this incredibly comfortable waiting room.
I like that.
You walk in, the chairs are plush, there's free coffee, the temperature is absolutely perfect. So you just sit there your whole life thinking you are entirely safe from the elements outside.
While the actual train to your destination just leaves the station without you.
Yes, exactly. It just leaves.
That analogy, it really captures the emotional reality of it perfectly. But we need to look closer at why the text uses the word perceived.
Right, because it's not actually secure.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
The safety of that waiting room is a total illusion because it's entirely dependent on forces completely outside of your control.
Like your boss or the economy.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, the biweekly paycheck feels safe because it arrives like clockwork. It creates this rhythm that actually soothes the human nervous system.
Right, it's predictable.
But in reality, it represents a single point of failure. If the company downsizes, or if the industry gets disrupted by new technology, or management just changes direction,
that comfortable waiting room vanishes overnight.
poof, gone.
And you are left out in the cold with no train and no shelter. But the psychological comfort of that regular deposit is it's so strong that it blinds us to the actual mathematical reality of what we're trading for it.
The math is really the kicker here.
The math the source presents to illustrate this is brutal. It outlines this reality as the 40-40-40 rule.
Right, the 40-40 rule.
Most people work 40 hours a week for 40 years, only to retire on 40% of what they couldn't afford to live on in the first place.
It's sobering.
When I read that, it sounded like a bad joke. I mean, how does that math actually play out in a real human life?
Well, let's run the numbers on it, because this equation is really the foundation of the entire trap.
Okay, let's do it.
Start with the first two numbers. 40 hours a week for 40 years. That represents the absolute bulk of your prime waking life.
Decades of it.
From your early 20s into your mid-60s, your highest energy years, your peak cognitive years, all of that vitality is surrendered to maintain a seat in that waiting room you talked about.
I find that terrifying, honestly.
It is terrifying.
You're trading your most valuable finite asset, which is your time on this planet, for a feeling of safety that isn't even real.
And it gets worse when you look at the final part of that ratio, the retiring on 40% of your income part.
Oh, right, the pay cut.
Right. And the source makes a very specific point of noting that the original 100% of the income was usually already insufficient.
Right, because things are expensive.
Exactly. People are generally stretching themselves incredibly thin during those 4 decades just to maintain the status quo.
Living paycheck to paycheck.
Or very close to it.
Yeah.
So to endure a lifetime of continuous labor, only to accept a massive mandated pay cut at the very end of it, it's mathematically disastrous.
So you're stepping off the 40-year ride with less than half the resources you had when you were already struggling to keep your head above water.
That's exactly it.
You spend 4 decades treading water, and your reward for not drowning is that they take away more than half of your life raft when you're older and much more vulnerable.
It's a grim picture.
It really makes me wonder, like, if the math is that glaringly terrible and we all kind of see it happening to the generations ahead of us, why do we sign up for it?
Right. Why do we run?
Yeah. Why do smart, highly capable people walk willingly into this pitcher plant?
Well, that is the most important question we can ask.
Right.
If the destination is demonstrably flawed, what is blinding us during the journey?
Right. What's keeping us there?
We have to look at the psychological drivers that keep people complacent while the math just completely works against them.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The text moves from the symptoms, the bad math, to the root causes.
Yes. The invisible chains.
Right. It points to 2 specific invisible chains keeping us in the trap: lifestyle creep and the fear of loss.
2 very powerful forces.
But I want to push back on this a bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
On the surface, if I know the math is bad, why can't I just stop spending money? It feels like it should be a simple matter of self-discipline. Just make a budget and stick to it, right?
It sounds so simple on paper.
But the source frames lifestyle creep not as a lack of discipline, but almost as a force of nature.
Right.
I kept picturing it like a gentle tide that comes in while you're asleep on the beach, You start out on dry sand feeling perfectly safe.
And you don't feel the water at first.
Exactly. You don't realize you are completely surrounded by water and drowning in new expenses until you wake up.
The tide analogy is much more accurate than thinking of it as a simple failure of discipline.
Really?
Yeah, because lifestyle creep operates below the threshold of our conscious financial radar. It is rarely a single reckless purchase.
Like buying a sports car out of nowhere?
Right. Very few people wake up and spontaneously buy a yacht they cannot afford. Instead, it's the accumulation of slight, seemingly reasonable upgrades.
Give me an example.
Well, you get a small raise at work, so you decide to lease a slightly nicer car because you feel you earned it.
Sure, that makes sense.
You get a promotion, so you move to an apartment with an extra bedroom. You switch from the store brand groceries to the premium organic market.
And each of those individual choices feels entirely justified in the moment. It just feels like the natural progression of becoming an adult.
Exactly. They feel like reasonable rewards for your hard work.
Yeah.
But collectively, these incremental upgrades ensure that your baseline living expenses rise to perfectly match your new higher income.
So you never actually get ahead.
Your income goes up, but your wealth, meaning your actual retained capital, the money you keep, stays exactly the same. It hovers at 0.
So the walls of the picture plant just keep getting taller.
Precisely.
But I still don't fully understand the second chain. The text explicitly states that the reason we can't just reverse course and stop spending is because the fear of loss is neurologically stronger than the desire for gain.
Yes.
Break that down for me in this context. What exactly are we so terrified of losing?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we are terrified of losing our current standard of living and, more deeply, our perceived social status.
Social status.
Yeah. In behavioral economics, this is a well-documented phenomenon known as loss aversion. The psychological pain of losing something we already possess is roughly twice as intense as the psychological pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
Wait, really? Losing $100 actually physically hurts my brain more than finding $100 feels good?
Yes, significantly more.
That's wild.
It is, and we have to look at why that is. Our brains were shaped by millions of years of evolutionary biology. In a hunter-gatherer context, giving up the food or resources you already have in your hands for the mere possibility of finding better resources tomorrow.
That was a huge risk.
It was an incredibly dangerous gamble. It could literally mean starvation. So your brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, it evolved to hold tightly onto whatever resources you currently possess.
Okay. I get the caveman logic, but how does that translate to the modern middle-class trap? I mean, I'm not going to starve if I trade in my leased SUV for a 10-year-old sedan.
Logically, no, you won't starve. But neurologically, Your brain processes social status and lifestyle regression as a profound threat to your survival within the tribe.
Oh, wow. So downgrading feels like a threat to my life.
Exactly. If you try to reverse lifestyle creep-like, if you consciously decide to step backward to a smaller apartment or cancel the expensive gym membership or drive a cheaper car to save money, your brain actively fights you.
It doesn't want you to do it.
It floods your system with stress hormones. It signals failure. It signals a loss of status. So the fear of loss completely overrides your logical desire to save money.
That makes the desire for gain-like, the ambition to achieve true financial freedom in the future, feel completely powerless against my own biology.
It feels powerless because financial freedom is abstract. It exists in the future. It's just a concept on a spreadsheet.
Right.
The comfort of your current upgraded lifestyle is tangible. It is right now.
So the fear of stepping backward keeps you locked in the cycle.
You're forced to keep working those 40 hours a week, year after year, just to maintain the lifestyle you have slowly crept into, because your brain convinces you that stepping backward is a survival threat.
That is deeply unsettling.
It really is.
It means the trap isn't just societal pressure from commercials or our neighbors. It's our own internal survival mechanisms being hijacked.
Yes, hijacked is the perfect word for it.
Our brains are telling us that the pitcher plant is a safe, sweet-smelling place to stay, and leaving it would be dangerous.
Even though staying is what kills you.
Exactly. If millions of years of evolution are actively working to keep us broke and trapped in this waiting room, I mean, are we just doomed? How does anyone actually beat their own biology?
It is a daunting realization for sure, but recognizing it as a biological default is the only way to disarm it.
You have to see it to fight it.
Right. Once you understand that your brain is actively deceiving you about what constitutes safety, you can begin to consciously counteract that wiring. And that is exactly what the source text offers next. It provides a concrete framework to escape the trap, but it requires a fundamental psychological shift from a consumer mindset to an investor mindset.
So what does this all mean? Because my immediate thought, and I think a lot of people listening might have the exact same thought, is that an investor mindset just means changing what you buy.
Changing the cart, so to speak.
Doesn't an investor mindset just mean opening a brokerage app and buying index funds instead of buying a new pair of designer shoes?
Yeah.
How does just swapping one type of purchase for another actually rewrite the deep evolutionary trap we just discussed?
I am so glad you brought that up because that is the most common misinterpretation of this concept.
Really? It's not about index funds.
No. I mean, this raises an important question. The text makes it absolutely clear that the shift from a consumer to an investor is not defined merely by the asset class of your purchases.
Okay.
It is not about stocks versus shoes. According to this source, adopting an investor mindset requires completely changing your definition of wealth itself.
Changing the definition of wealth. Okay, how does the text define it?
It states that true wealth is not what you buy, but the freedom to choose your time.
I need to sit with that for a second. Wealth is not what you buy, but the freedom to choose your time.
It's powerful, isn't it?
That is a massive paradigm shift from everything we are taught.
Let's synthesize this, because it is the crucial pivot point of the entire source. The consumer mindset defines wealth entirely through accumulation.
Stuff. Just getting more stuff.
Right. It looks at material goods, the big house, the luxury car, the designer clothes, the expensive vacations, as the primary markers of success. The consumer trades their finite time for money and then immediately trades that money for things.
And because of the lifestyle creep and the loss aversion we just talked about, they're perpetually forced to keep trading their time just to keep paying for those things.
Exactly.
They might look wealthy in objects, but they are completely bankrupt in time.
Bankrupt in time, yes. Now, the investor mindset completely decouples the concept of wealth from material accumulation. It strictly attaches the concept of wealth to autonomy.
Autonomy, okay.
The investor looks at money not as a tool to acquire more possessions, but as a tool to literally buy back their own time.
Buy back their time.
Every dollar saved and invested isn't just a number sitting in a bank account. It is a future hour, a future week, or a future year where you do not have to sit in that waiting room.
It's the realization that time is the only truly finite resource we have. You can always get another job, you can always make another dollar, you can always buy another car.
But you can't buy another day.
Right. You cannot manufacture another Tuesday.
Right.
Once a day is gone, it is gone forever.
When the text talks about shifting to an investor mindset, it means evaluating every single financial decision through the lens of time.
Give me a concrete example of that. What does evaluating a purchase through the lens of time actually look like in daily life?
Okay, let's say you are deciding between a reliable $20,000 car and a luxury $40,000 car.
Okay, pretty common scenario.
The consumer looks at the monthly payment and asks, can I fit this into my current paycheck?
Right.
But the investor calculates their actual hourly wage after taxes and calculates exactly how many hours of their finite lifespan they will have to surrender to a job just to pay that $20,000 difference.
Oh, wow.
So if you make $25 an hour after taxes, that $20,000 upgrade isn't just money. It is 800 hours of your life.
800 hours.
It is 20 entire weeks of working 40 hours a week solely to pay for the logo on the steering wheel. The investor asks, is that trade-off worth a portion of my finite lifespan?
That completely flips the 40-40-40 rule on its head.
It really does.
Instead of accepting the cruel math of trading your prime years for a pay cut, you're front-loading your discipline to literally purchase your prime years back from the system.
Yes.
You're escaping the psychological state of perceived security by building actual mathematical autonomy over your own calendars.
And that is precisely how you disarm the neurological trap of loss aversion.
Wait, how does it disarm it?
Because when your internal definition of gain shifts from having more stuff to having total control over my daily life, the desire for gain suddenly becomes powerful enough to overcome the fear of loss.
Oh, I see what you mean. Losing the premium groceries or downgrading the car doesn't trigger that evolutionary fear response anymore.
Exactly, because you realize those luxury items were the very chains keeping you tied to the 40-hour grind.
You start to view material accumulation not as status, but as a threat to your freedom.
That's the shift.
The things you were so afraid of losing were actually just the slippery walls of the pitcher plant. Once you redefine wealth as time, stepping backward materially is no longer a loss of status. It's a strategic move to secure your freedom.
Well said.
But I mean, I can hear people listening right now saying, that is a beautiful philosophy, but I still have to pay rent on Tuesday. I have a mortgage. I have kids.
Very real concerns.
Yeah. How does this investor mindset actually apply to someone who is deeply stuck in the middle of the 40-40-40 cycle and can't just quit their job today?
That is a highly practical concern. And the source material doesn't suggest that you can just snap your fingers and be free tomorrow.
Right.
The transition from a consumer to an investor happens in micro-decisions. It starts with awareness. You don't have to quit your job on Tuesday. You just have to stop actively expanding your lifestyle to match every new dollar you make.
Stop the creep.
Stop the creep. You start by reclaiming small blocks of time. You build an emergency fund so that a break-in water heater doesn't force you into credit card debt, which, by the way, is essentially borrowing against your future time at high interest.
Oh, man. That's true. So it's about slowly starving the pitcher plant.
Yes, starving it out.
You stop giving it new material to trap you with. You divert the money from the lifestyle upgrades into investments that generate their own income, slowly replacing the need for you to trade your hours for dollars.
Exactly. The ultimate goal of the investor mindset isn't necessarily a vault full of gold coins like a cartoon character.
Scrooge McDuck swimming in gold.
Right, it's not that. It is reaching a point where your capital sustains your baseline needs and your calendar is entirely your own. You might still choose to work, but you are working out of purpose or interest, not out of the desperate need to maintain an inflated lifestyle.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening breakdown of these sources. To recap the journey we've taken today, we started by exposing the grim mathematical illusion of the 40-40-40 rule.
Right.
The reality that most people surrender their prime decades just to retire on a fraction of an income that was never enough to begin with.
It's a tough reality to face.
And we discovered that walking into this trap isn't usually an accident or a lack of intelligence. It's a snare held together by the invisible tide of lifestyle creep and our own evolutionary brain wiring.
Loss aversion.
Our amygdala uses loss aversion to make us terrified of stepping backward materially, even when stepping backward is the only logical way to escape the trap.
And we unpack the ultimate solution provided by the text, which is that overcoming those deep neurological hurdles requires redefining wealth altogether.
It changes everything.
It really does. We have to move away from the consumer's endless accumulation of depreciating objects and transition to the investor's accumulation of time, options, and autonomy.
For you listening right now, recognizing this psychological state is the absolute first step. You cannot step around a trap you cannot see.
Very true.
You have to understand these mechanisms, how your brain conflates spending with survival, so you aren't unknowingly trading your irreplaceable time for mere perceived security in a comfortable waiting room that is ultimately going nowhere.
Awareness really is the antidote to the illusion. Once you clearly see the math of the 40-40-40 rule and the psychology of loss aversion at play, the financial choices you make every single day take on a completely different weight.
Yeah.
You stop asking what you can afford and start asking what your freedom is worth.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the middle class trap, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over based on everything we've unpacked today.
I'm ready.
If true wealth is the freedom to choose your time, take a hard look at your calendar for the upcoming week. How much of your week is currently wealthy by this definition?
Good question.
How many of those hours belong entirely to you? And what is one micro decision, one specific choice you can make today to shift from being a consumer of things to an investor of your own future time?
Just one choice.
Because the door to the waiting room is actually unlocked. You just have to be willing to stand up, leave the free coffee behind, and walk out.